okay thing.
Show. Podcast rather. Look for us on YouTube at Giants Jack, Facebook, the Friends of Zeus podcast, and don't even bother with Spotify yet because I've done nothing.
Wow, that's easy.
Yep, I'm lame. How's everybody doing?
Pretty good.
Doing good, man. Better.
Yeah. So how many people here have had COVID now?
Jury's still out on me.
Huh?
Yeah, no.
The jury's still out on me. I may have it now, but apart from that, nobody.
I got it, and it's my bitch.
I guess we should all put on masks then.
Oh,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we should do that. The Zeus, of course, has one because he can't possibly get it now.
So
there you go. No, keep it on. Keep it on, please.
Good luck.
So Mike, it's your game. You tell us what we're talking about.
Yeah, so this week's episode for everyone out there in podcast land. This is a topic we've touched on here and there in other podcasts, but never did a deep dive in it. And that is I don't know exactly how to put it best, but the relationship between the internet and children is a kind of a general overview, or how kids relate to the internet, or how much access they should have to the internet. I guess there's a couple ways you can put it.
I think, if I may, we should addend a little bit to it, and Jack can probably relate, probably not Dana, but I think we got to throw the video game culture with how they can talk to each other over the games, and it definitely leads into it, their access to the internet, because everyone's connected.
We'll definitely get to that. But
okay. So there's a couple of different levels of this, and on this, I know I sent out the 2 articles, which are kind of like a primer. The Pew Research thing is it's a lot of numbers, so it's a little dry. The article from CNN is a little overwrought, but just to kind of get the conversation started. But where I come down after kind of like thinking about this for a long time, and it's stuff that I've kind of just written about for myself and try to make some sense of it. There's a lot of different ways to approach it and look at it. One, you have, in no particular order, you have, this is a new technology, right? So, when radio came out as a big thing, I'm sure that there were parents around, like in the mid 40s or early 40s, like, little Johnny's just spending too much time in front of that radio all night. He should be reading or doing his homework or whatever, and then of course television. One of the best movies about television's influence, if you've never seen it, is Avalon by Barry Levinson. Came out in like 88, I think. You should see that. But anyway, and then of course video games. Little Johnny's playing too many video games. It's rotting his brain. And then, of course, the internet, which is kind of a big general category that encapsulates a lot of different things.
Yeah, you might as well be talking about the environment. It's like, it's such an integral part
it's really what's on the internet, right? So it in one way, it's a progression of that. And I don't want to be like, the guy yelling at clouds how it's worse now than it ever has been, because that's rarely the case. Each generation of parents and stuff deal with what they have to deal with. But there is, like, digging down a little bit, I've kind of identified like 5 areas of concern that I have, when it comes to my kid. And again, in no particular order, use of the internet. You have the social aspect. So you have, again, the main social media platforms, and not only their active influence, that you have systems and things designed to collect your kids' eyeballs to them, right? Likes, thumbs up, it's not a passive medium like television is. And also what it supplants. So if you're interacting socially online, there's only 24 hours in the day. That's replacing other social interaction, be it face to face, be it on the telephone. What's the difference between these things? What's gained, what's lost? So you have like the social aspect of the internet. You have the stranger danger aspect of the internet. Like, oh my God, my 9-year-old's on the internet and she's getting emails from Zeus or whatever.
Hey.
So,
one time you're
anyway,
I'll never let you forget it.
So it's sort of like, this, a lot of people call this like the Wild West aspect, right? So my kid's on the internet, I have to learn how to control it because they're getting influenced by all these things, and the minute I turn my head around, someone's like in their feed or whatever. So that's the second one. The third would be like inappropriate material aspect, right? So this is, my kid, he's using the internet. I've got him protected from, people just being able to access them. I'm keeping an eye on things. The social aspects balance well, maybe, but you're always like a couple keywords away from stumbling into, something they shouldn't be seeing or whatever. Right. So, that's the third. And then, the fourth, which I kind of got into on the first one, is the fact that unlike television, which is passive, and unlike video games, which although isn't passive, it's not quite as capable of manipulating your mind as much as a lot of other apps and things on the internet are. In other words, there are people that make a lot of money coming up with ways to attract eyeballs, and we know about this. I mean, the whole, you wake up in the morning, you got to check your feed, right? You got to see what's going on. People turn on their phone when people can't stand in the line for 3 seconds without having their phone in front of them. So the fact that this is a manipulative medium, and not only from the corporations, but government, all sorts of other people. It's a stacked deck. Your 8-year-old is not sophisticated enough to know and counteract the things that are getting thrown at him or her. And then number 5, and this is kind of a little bit of retread too, is what I call like the replacement issue. So if you're spending all this time, and this is for adults too, whatever time that you're spending online, it's what that is replacing something else, right? So, people say, oh, I don't read, I read everything online. I don't read books anymore, or I don't call my parents, but I keep up with them on Facebook or whatever. And again, there's things that are being replaced, and what's the cost? What's the cost benefit, of that? When my daughter's 6 years old, and before she was born, this is something I had thought about a lot with my nephews, and spoke with my sister about. She's about 4 or 5 years older than me. My nephews are in high school.
Oh, so she's like 27?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We had tons of conversations about this because this was years ago, but she was like really concerned about it because she felt like she was kind of just making it up as she went along. Like, when do you let your child have a smartphone? And I think 3 of my 4 nephews have smartphones now. I think one's
How old
in
are they?
8th grade. I think one's still in 8th grade. The other 3 are in high school.
Can I? Or this is your last one, right? Your last.
No, that was it. Yeah, that was the 5.
And it's interesting, but I want to kind of address that one right off the bat, because you guys, I won't say my son's name, but my older son, whom I think all of you have met except for Dana. he's in that mode right now where he really wants one. And if he gets his grades up to par, we're going to give him one, even though he's like grades that I wish I had when I was a kid. He's all B's and A's, maybe 1 C, really good. But he wants a cell phone, and this kind of leans to the gaming part of things, for me at least, because even though I like games, and that's kind of my pastime, when I have a chance, I play a game. I don't want him to be on the same road that I went down, because I grew up with the 26. I started with the 2600 and had every other system since then. You know what I mean? And it's not that it's bad. I think it can actually be an outlet to a certain degree. Unless you turn into like one of these World of Warcraft kids where you're playing, you know, paying $50 a month and, you know, all of a sudden you're in debt because of a video game. That's bad. And I sometimes see him going down that route. So I'm having a real hard time, because I also want him to be safe. I want him to have a phone, because God forbid something's going down, I want to be there. So man, they've got us trapped. It's like back when we were kids, you didn't have a cell phone. You were screwed. If something went down, it was your wits, and that's it. And now it's like, we want to say that they should rely on their wits, and that hopefully that'll keep them safe. But we've been living in this world. I mean, these kids don't know what a black and white TV was. They don't know a time where there are our kids, mine being, well, Jack's got older kids, but the point being is that they don't know a time where they didn't have like a smartphone, which is more powerful than the computer any of us had when we were younger. You know what I mean? So it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. You want to teach them to be resilient, but you want them to be safe. So it's a weird place right now. I mean, it's kind of like you got to go move into the woods and live off the land if you're gonna go that route, because otherwise you're gonna fall back into it all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of my issue is I don't really as much buy the safety thing, because you know, I haven't used my cell phone to get out of a dangerous situation in 20 years, but I get that that's a concern. To me, it's more of, you know, a child today didn't grow up when we grew up. Like it or not, this technology is ubiquitous. You know, where is the line where, you know, how much do they need it versus do you want to, like, are you just kind of retarding their development in the world they're growing up in, because it is so ubiquitous? And not having it, is that just an arbitrary decision? You know, it's like, on one hand, it's like, if these things are here, then children should be trained and have knowledge about what the dangers are and what the ramifications are, versus just, you can't have this, I'm taking this away, you can't see it. Because eventually it's like the same thing with you know, parents are like, you can't listen to that rock and roll, it's going to melt your brain. It's like, well, kids are going to eventually listen to the rock and roll, right? So you can't keep things, you can't just put your kid or kids in a you know, closet or whatever without some ramifications. To me, it's just been like a balance thing, like where to strike that balance, and also educating them that, and I'm educating myself on this. I mean, this technology, like I said, it is not passive. It picks up on things. We've talked about this before. I have a coffee maker that's, I don't know how old it is, 12 years old. And it's on the fritz. And about 2 weeks ago, I started talking to my wife, like, we got to get a new coffee maker. Coffee maker ads come up in my feed all the time now. Like, I've never searched for them. I haven't looked for them on Amazon. I've only spoken about that we need to buy a new coffee maker. And the ads have been coming up on my feeds, and that's not the first time I've heard that sort of thing. So, you know, I'm still coming to terms with that myself as a newly minted 5-decade-old person myself. So, you know, and a kid, they take everything kind of at face value. You know, I'm not an anti-technology person, but I also don't want to just hand my kid's brain over to Zuckerberg either.
Right.
So if I may, I'm going to put Mike on the under the gun for a second here. Mike, you with us?
Yes, sir.
So, I mean, for me, when I look at this kind of stuff, I always lean, and I know you guys are going to bust my chops about it, but I always lean to the whole, you know, the Adam Walsh thing, and how all of a sudden all these bad things were happening to kids when we let them go outside. And now it's, you know, where we keep them inside, and we don't let them go off and run out into the woods and find the things that they find like we did. I'm just wondering, Mike, do you have something that would, I guess, parallel to the onset of the internet? Because and normally I bust your chops about your age, but you are like the next generation in this. Was there something for you guys in your period of time that like you were like, oh no, this is gonna really screw everything up, or this is affecting people negatively, like music or certain TV programs or something along those lines?
I don't think there was anything as profound as the internet. I think everything new that came along elicited comment, except probably Pong. Pong was about as benign as it could get, but anything else did. So yeah, and the internet, you know, it's somebody my age who are basically, I spent probably way more than half my life without it. It's amazing. It's a miracle. But it's like everything else. It's like a gun. You use it right, it's good. You use it wrong, it's bad. You know.
It's a good point.
Here's the thing with the internet for me is like the internet is the gun that you leave out in the house.
Yeah.
You lock it up. You don't put it in a box. The kids have access to it all the time. If you know, all jokes aside, if they said, if your daughter Dana were to say, 2 girls were picking on me at school, but she puts in 2 girls and it says 1 cup after, and she goes, wonder what this is. You know what I mean? Boom, loaded gun, accidentally shot her friend. You know what I mean?
I think in our parenting, we're on the learning curve too, because we seem to be the first generation of parents actually doing the policing of this, so to speak. My daughter's 16 and she does not subscribe to any social media.
Good for
That's
her.
something that I requested.
Mhm.
She appreciates where I'm coming from. I just don't blindly say, I don't want you on the internet doing social media. That's it, and destroy. My mother was like, because I said so, that's why. Like,
I say that all the time.
Yeah.
I don't communicate with her that way. I explain why. So, and then she's more receptive to it. So this way I know she won't be doing like one of those behind your back accounts. That I would find out anyway, because our phones are connected. But the reason why I postpone that for her is many reasons. Perfectly smart, well-intended children that are going to grow up to be wonderful citizens that contribute to society. At 15 years old, their prefrontal cortex is not developed. It's not fully developed.
Yeah,
They are impulsive and posting things that, they don't think about. They don't think all the way through, and it doesn't go away. So I've learned from some of my, friends' children's mistakes prior to making that decision. And I think that we have a responsibility. And like you were saying, Mike, it's if you use it for good, it's good. You got all the research at your fingertips. If you're passionate about something, you get a lot of really good information. If you know how to navigate it, use the right sources of information, if you're educated on that. You could use it for really, really evil things in the world as well. So it's really just education, education, education. We need to like educate ourselves first. Because if we don't know about these things, half the crap that goes on, and if you don't know about it, you don't know about it. You know, it started with like the text, like children texting with like LAMO. Like if you don't know that means laughing my ass off.
Yeah.
And there's way more of those in the world.
What else did you hate about Tom? What else did you hate about Tom?
Oh yeah.
I just feel like we have a responsibility to maintain, you know, educating, like up with the times, be in the loop, especially in loops that they might be in. When I gave my daughter a cell phone, it was because she started to walk to school by herself. She was in the 6th grade. So 11 years old, she got one. And it was more of a safety tool for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt deeply that I had to have the porno talk. You know, I mean, children were like Googling Barbie and that was coming up. And so like Hello Kitty or something, which is kind of nasty that, you know, these URLs would be so closely related to something a child would be interested in Googling. Right. So, you know, that was like right at her fingertips and she might stumble upon it by accident or not. A friend might show it to her or whatever. I just had to have the conversation before I handed her the phone, and a lot of other conversations that were kind of uncomfortable because she was 11.
But you know what, may I? They're like, kids are developing younger now. Am I wrong? Like at 11? No?
Do you mean like bodily?
Like developing, like body-wise? Like
so they are. It's interesting that you say that because they just lowered the sex education standard from 4th grade to 3rd grade.
Wow.
So well, the puberty talk begins
3rd grade
to 3rd grade in the state of New Jersey anyway, because like precocious puberty has just like the bar is dropping, you know, it's getting younger and younger, I suppose. And so they want to, and that could be, you know, there's more information out there and children are finding out things on their own.
It could also be hormones in food, like that's the big one that they talk about.
They talked about milk many years ago, like the hormones in the cows. And I mean, who knows? I know the information is out there at their fingertips sooner. So it could be just a rush for the education system to get to them before
the internet does.
Before they get to something that is,
you know what? And I will say this to the school system's credit, you can knock them on a lot of stuff, but these computers that they're giving them and sending home with them, they can't do shit except school. You know what I mean? I mean, they're finding some backdoor stuff. The funny thing is like they are. He's like, oh yeah, we figured out how to get Minecraft on the, like all this backdoor stuff. Like you type it in Spanish and then you can get Minecraft because nobody thought.
Yeah, dude, nature finds a way.
Yeah.
You gotta think. I'm gonna quote, or not quote, but just kind of refer to Joe Rogan for a second because he talks about it a lot, and he says that like it's just coming fast, and this is probably part of evolution. Like we're gonna become this cyber / natural kind of entity on a societal level. You know what I mean? And I kind of
also like a like I think that it's changing the brains of people.
Yes.
Well, you know, it's
like the neuroplasticity of our brain is being affected.
Yes.
It's definitely fascinating.
An evolution that's going to be a lot more appreciated within generations.
Yeah, we're in a paradigm.
Yeah,
it's interesting. Like they talk about Facebook. There was this one study because Facebook straight up used like psychological manipulation with the red dots next to your, you know, when you get when you go into your Facebook and you see the little red dots next to notifications. They've done studies on it, and there's a dopamine spike.
Yeah.
For those that aren't aware, I'm sure I know definitely
They did
Dana
that
is
on
aware
purpose.
that That dopamine that's your reward system. That's like what your brain tells you something is good. So when you see that, like, you go for it, and usually right afterwards you go, oh, it's garbage. But you still, that's like the first thing you go to. At least I'll speak for myself. I'm susceptible, you know?
No, I heard this. I heard or absorbed the same information a while back about, the dopamine and like it really affects your hormones. It's like your reward system. Yeah, you see a little red dot, your brain is like, yay. Yeah, quickly to be let down, right? Once you see what they really are.
Right.
I just feel like we should maintain like our responsibility on that and keep open communication with our children. They don't know the life that they don't know. And that concerns me too, because I feel like they're less inclined to play instruments or participate in like art or dance or some other non-screen activity. And they technically don't and probably won't ever really truly know boredom. And there's something really
but it's a different time of it's a different type of satisfaction to that boredom. Like I've made these references before. I'm sorry for interrupting, Dana. But we had again, I've said it before, we would go out at sunup and come back for lunch and go back out and then come back when the lamps came on. But we would be in the woods, we would be finding forts. Like the internet for us as children, as little children, was the world. And
imagination.
What's that?
I said an imagination.
Yeah, we had to figure out how to make the rope swing.
And what bit?
Vitamin D.
Yeah.
The children don't go out the way we went out. We did go out and ran, and we got fresh air and exercise. We did a lot of natural moving.
And danger. We had danger.
They don't do all that. They don't do all that.
The other thing, and that I try to keep in mind is, everyone we approach this technology with our background that we grew up in. So there's things that we reference. There's things that we equate other things to, that kids that are growing up now who weren't exposed to that, they don't have that framework. So they're experiencing the same thing we are completely differently, right? It's almost like, to try and think of an example, it's like if you grew up in a time, if you were born like we were when planes were already invented, right? And so you're like, oh yeah, I see planes flying around.
Yeah, no big deal.
I'm going to go to the airport. I'm going to get on a plane. Like I know people that have flown on planes and survived. I don't know anyone that's ever died on a plane before, right? But if you grew up in a place where you never even heard of planes before and someone took you to the airport and you got on a plane, it would be completely terrifying, possibly, right? So we bring something to the table. And the thing that I keep thinking is like, okay, I believe that what I'm bringing to the table, my life experience, is protecting me from the negative side effects of these things, because I'm smart enough, right? The hubris, I'm smart enough that the negative things aren't going to affect me. But my kid, they don't have those things, so it could affect them. But that could be completely flip-flopped. I don't know. I don't know fully what their experience is from a firsthand perspective and what they're bringing to the table. I mean, for Zeus's son,
my daughter, like when we were in quarantine and my daughter was on school like remotely, her socialization was remote, doing FaceTime. If she wanted to watch a movie or a show, was on a screen. So what ended up happening was she was occasionally getting like these dizzy spells, and not just normal dizzy spells, like dizzy spells that woke her up out of her sleep.
Wow.
So I became alarmed. There was like 4 of them in a 2-month period. And I was like, okay, we're going to a pediatric neurologist. I was able to like jump the line because there was like almost a 12-month wait to get an appointment with this guy. All of them. All these
that's telling. That's telling too.
Very telling. Very.
Yeah.
So I finally got one because a friend of mine that we all had worked together. We got her in. He was telling me that he's seeing nothing but people her age with the same thing. And some cases were even worse. Most cases included vomiting, and it's a form of migraine that's related to screen time. So what was happening was he was explaining to me that the screen is only so much in front of you, and your eyes only rest that way. So like you're not looking into the distance at trees or the sky, or your brain is just right. Your visuals are right here.
Very flat.
So messes with your equilibrium, right?
Yeah.
So that he was giving her exercises to take breaks from the screen, go outside, or even look out the window, look far away. So she followed his instructions, and he also was concerned about. They had their own conversation. He picked up on some key things, I believe, and he was offering up talk therapy as well to her, which appealed to her. Strangely, I was like, really, you want to go? Excuse me. So what he was finding was that these kids are depressed, like really depressed. They're getting migraines. I don't think it's good.
Mm-hmm.
Their brains are still developing. They don't know the impact yet because not enough time has passed.
Yeah.
They will in years from now, but right now they don't even have enough information, because the people who were born into like the internet as it is are still, in young adulthood. There's not enough data.
I've had this interesting thing.
Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry, Mike.
No, that's cool.
Just a quick note on that, as far as like the age of the usage of the phones. My favorite thing to see now is when you see the baby in the baby stroller, the toddler or whatever, and the young mom is pushing the baby. And if you look closely, the baby's on the phone playing video games or watching YouTube videos on the phone. And we're talking about like a little toddler in a stroller.
Right.
Yeah,
Like
well, Jack, you
give
saw
it
them
to
at
them.
the restaurant. Like
Well,
they give them iPads to sit at the restaurant.
I
They
mean, talk
that's a
about,
time to talk to your family.
yeah. I mean, or how about like, I used to have like, if I'm in the stroller, maybe I had a rattle, and
so you looked out.
I'd rattle the rattle, and that was entertainment. And I'd look around at the world and I'd cry.
Well, and that still happens. We still look around at the world and cry.
Right.
At least on this podcast.
Yes, we do.
So, well, that goes back to kind of what I was saying. For what you're saying, Jack, is it's not just what is the influence of this technology, but it's also what is it replacing. It's not just what is it doing to us. It's
right.
If it wasn't here, there'd be something else. And what is that something else? And what is the influence of not having that other thing? For me, just another anecdote, I know, but when I drive in the car, like when I was a kid, I used to love looking out the window when we were driving somewhere. Like I loved it. I had the little game where you would like check off if you saw a yield sign or a stop sign, or like a Volkswagen Beetle. I had competitions with my sister. Like we'd be on a trip to go up to my uncle's. It's an hour and a half away. Who could see the most different state license plates right out our respective. So anyway, all that stuff. Right. So my daughter, a lot of times when we go on long trips,
where it had those different things, like you had to look for.
It had the little red slide.
Yeah,
that's what I'm talking about.
A 55 speed limit, or gas prices being 15 cents.
So when we go on a long trip, my daughter, she's got a little Kindle thing or whatever with some games and things on it. And inevitably, I still like to look out the window, even when I'm driving, which is good when you're driving, look out the window. But, and like pass by some, there's an ostrich or a llama over there. And she's like, what? And they're like, we're past it. And she gets upset, like, I missed it. You have to tell me when this is coming up. And I've told her, I'm like, listen, hon, you have to be looking out the window all the time to see these things. You can't just wait for me to tell you. Like it's a trip. So and I keep pushing that, you know, on her to where like now there's certain times where she'll just like be looking out the window. But that's where I'm getting at with the replacement, you know, it's not just what the technology does and like what Dana says and the neurological effects, which is a whole other thing. I mean, that stuff just blows my mind, but it's also like, what are you giving up? It's like anything else in life. There's always a trade-off. But anyway.
Do you remember like also like, no, just the whole road trip thing? Like, you know, your parents would stop at a gas station and you get like those activity books with like, and they would have like Mad Libs in them.
Yeah.
I remember the ones with the special ink.
Yeah.
You had uncover it with that. Oh God, I used to.
Yeah, it was just
shit out of
it was just fun stuff to do. And now like the classic, like you see it in TV commercials, the family's going for a trip somewhere and people are on their phones, and you know, you see it everywhere now, and it's just.
Well, I mean, it's what the parents allow. At the end of the day, it's what the parents allow.
Right.
Do you want your kid to have Mad Libs? They still sell Mad Libs. So you buy them.
You can get them.
Into the house.
Yeah.
Well, there's an app version of the Mad Libs now.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
No,
I'm gonna have to get that.
There probably is.
No, I'm playing Mad Libs.
All right, I have one more thing to add, and then I'm just gonna be quiet. I think one of the worst aspects and the most crucial aspect of the online experience of phones, I don't even call them phones because it's like the last thing they are, but the handheld devices, the addiction.
Oh my God.
Okay, so, you know, not only are we all addicts, but so are they. So like born into this addiction to the device. It's like they can't live without it at this point. I believe if somebody took this away, I'd be like, OMG, I got my business in there. I got my work emails. I got all my social contact. I got my life up in here. So I can't deny that I'm not in that loop. I mean, the addiction is probably the worst aspect of it.
Dana, the fact that you said OMG kind of supports all of that.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Here's my thing.
Thumbs up. Yeah.
Here's like where I look at it. Like, it's kind of like this is the new transcendentalism. We're living in the new John Locke kind of era of like our minds are opened up to something that never existed. Now, granted, in the case of John Locke, it was like I said, transcendentalism. It was like looking outside of what we believed. You know what I mean? And now we got this whole other, I mean, cyberspace is becoming more of a like visceral, real thing. Jason was on, well, I wasn't on last week, but he was on 2 weeks ago, and he was talking about the Oculus and how you're in this game, and like it used to be, you know, you'd go up and in the game and like you'd shoot somebody and then you'd walk by and shoot them one more time. But now it's not, that was just like you pretend to do it. But now with these games, he puts it on his head and he's looking down on somebody and burying an axe in his, it's a little frightening, and
it's more direct.
Yeah. And the thing for me is like, the reason I was using the transcendentalism thing is like, I think we're like the last resilient generation. Like, we get that we're addicted, and I've always said that like the best thing you can do, the best parent you can be is just make them a little better for yourself than yourself. You know what I mean? Even just a tiny bit. And we're kind of doing that. We're the last ones, I think, that are really going to get that and try and say, hey, don't do what I did, which is really tough because they're still going to do what you did. But at least we're conscious of this shift in reality and how things are going. But I don't know.
Wasn't recorded on the internet. And at least ours wasn't recorded and put on the internet.
Right. At least when we said, boy, I really want to get the Stretch Armstrong toy, we had to tell our parents. They didn't have 15 other routes that they could look and see our browsing history or all this other stuff. Like,
right.
Like I think we're the last generation that's like analog leading into digital. But then It's our kids. It's gonna be. They're not even gonna know like what we knew. We went again. I do always go back to it, but we went out and we took in the world. Even if you were like a complete cipher, like total recluse of a kid and stayed in the house, you still went out and threw snowballs or you played outside. Even the most reclusive kids would go out every once in a while. But now they never have to leave the house. They can get whatever they want to. I'm sorry, I got thrown off by the dog.
That's Oscar.
Hey, Oscar.
That's my grandfather's name. Hey, Oscar.
That is a cute dog.
He is very cute. He's
My
long.
old man.
But yeah,
Oh.
like I said, again, we're analog and our kids are going to be completely digital, and it's going to be a weird thing to take in as we get older and, are dependent on them. I'm worried.
Well, we talked about this. We touched on it on another podcast, but I do this little exercise once in a while where
you don't exercise.
if I'm out, yeah, not an actual exercise, mental exercise. Where if I'm out somewhere, like I could be at a gas station waiting in line for a pump or, client's house or whatever. And I think what would happen if there was like an EMP right now? Like I can't use my car, can't use my credit card or my bank card. Nothing, there's no electricity, phone doesn't work. Like I'm just here in, Wileysville, Maryland, whatever. I don't even know where I am. I don't even know where I am because I took my GPS to get here. Like, how do I get home? Like, and I think about that stuff sometimes. Like, what do I have in my car? Like the people that got stranded on I-95 in Virginia. Like, do I have anything in my car? Could I even survive 6 hours? Like, what what am I doing? Because in the past, in the past, you had to think about that sort of thing. Like I'm in sales right now. I have a cell phone. I have a computer. I have all this stuff. My dad, he was in sales back in the 70s. And I remember in his little company car, his little Ford LTD or whatever he would get, he would have rolls of like nickels and dimes because you needed nickels and dimes to use the payphones because it was like 15 cents to use a payphone. And he had to know where the payphones were.
A what? What kind
I know. And like check in with his office. Like he had to do so much more thinking, right, to get through his day. And have an awareness of where he was. And did I pack a lunch? Am I going to eat somewhere? There was so much more. There's so much more thought you had to put into your day. And for us, we really don't need to. But if it all just went away like that fast, we would be pretty effed, man. Just try it one time. Just sometime the next week. When you're out somewhere, just think like, what happened if there was no electricity all of a sudden? Look, we just lost Tom. He just lost his electricity apparently.
Yeah, he's out.
What do we do if we lose Tom? These are all very serious questions.
He hasn't spoken yet, so we got to get him back.
He grunted a little bit.
Yeah, he did grunt a little bit.
Anyway,
but no, just to as far as but you broke it down really nicely, Mike, so thanks for that in the beginning with sort of your 5 concerns with this issue. And I remember, like video games, right? Like I remember in the beginning, we had an old Xbox One and we had the Wii. Remember the Wii with the little,
which I think was great. I think that's a great system.
You made a character of yourself and you could play tennis, you get the little thing and you're swinging it. And
I had the Michael Jackson game, you could dance.
Oh, you had the Michael Jackson game for Sega Genesis?
The Wii.
Like
Wii? You would dance, like you would have to match it.
Holy cow.
I thought you meant the old one.
He would do anything to get close to kids, huh?
Does anybody remember Zeus back in the day of the Sega Genesis? There was the Michael Jackson game. where
It sounds familiar.
no, he literally had to rescue children. I swear to God. Yeah, you can Google it. Google like old Michael Jackson game where he rescues children. It was a real thing.
Tom says he lost his internet.
Oh no,
I couldn't have timed it better.
Wow.
that sucks.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah,
But no, I was just thinking about like, no, just as far as introduction of the kids, because I have 4 boys, right? And they range in age from, you know, I mean, I'll just go by this year's years. They're basically 21 to 13 years old.
Hmm.
Okay.
So you're right in it. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. And so we always had the thing, well, I mean, well, the video games, that's kind of where I noticed it started. Because I remember the Wii became like, they also had these little things called the 3DS. And it was like this compact, portable video game system, and it had the little cards, and it had a screen at the top and at the bottom. And apparently this wondrous little device could do things that I didn't know it could do, that of course kids figure out. So I guess what I eventually found out from watching them was that you could go on the internet on these little Wi-Fi devices. So you weren't just playing video games. Like you could go on the internet and you could watch videos of YouTube, and I was astounded by it, because I was like, no wonder the kids they're not bitching about how we need a new computer, because they're basically walking around with one already. And I was a little disturbed by that, but you know, for the most part, you see them playing video games or watching videos about video games. You know, I never caught anybody watching something that they shouldn't be watching, and I talked to them about it. Then you fast forward, then there was something called the Wii U, which came out after the Wii, and it
had its own screen on the controller.
It had its own screen, and it was like this, it was really neat. Like the kids loved it. And it turned out that, you know, you could go on the internet with that too, which I eventually found out through watching these kids play these games. And then I can say it was 13 years old was when it was decided the kids could have their own cell phone. I was not really on board with this plan, because I didn't really buy the safety thing either, Mike. I'm like, okay, well, they walk from the bus stops, and sometimes they have band. I said, but there's other kids with parents who have phones. Like, I don't really think they need it. But you know, as long as we have the talk, you know, and plus at that point with the first couple of kids, like we were sort of cell phone dunces ourselves, because like I remember I'd just gotten a smartphone before that, you know what I mean? So I knew how to phone call and I knew how to text. I didn't really use it for the internet. I still don't to this day. Ask Dana. I text with it, I call with it. I don't know all the doodads and shit on it. And so we agreed to 13, but I had two of your concerns, Mike, which was stranger danger, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that goes for the video games too, because you kind of catch on with these games that they're interacting with people all over the world, and then they get the little headset, right? So you're starting to see this evolution.
You don't even hear it.
And there's an evolution happening in the house, right? Of all these devices starting to become more prevalent. But stranger danger was one, and then adult material was the big thing, because the internet, even a phone dunce like myself, knew that the whole world is on this goddamn thing. Mm-hmm. And so you had to have the talk with them, you know, and we did. But I mean, at the end of the day, they're boys. So I told my ex-wife, I'm like, they're boys. They're gonna get together in little fucking groups, and they're gonna fucking watch shit that they shouldn't be watching. I said, that's going to happen. And then lo and behold, there was one day, my oldest boy had a phone.
Oh boy.
No, he wasn't home. And my second son was like 12. He hadn't gotten his own phone yet. And this was like an issue that we were discussing. Like, is this the right thing to do? So there's a bunch of other boys in the neighborhood that used to come around our backyard and play in the backyard all the time, right? So let's say there's like 3 or 4 of them. And one was this kid who was the next door neighbor's kid. And he was a little younger than Caden. So Caden's like 11, 12, and this kid's a year younger. And this kid, of course, has the brand new iPhone, right? Because his family had money and all this stuff. And so they're up in like the little playground house, like at the top of the slide, and everybody's sitting in there cross-legged, and they're not playing football, and they're not running around. They don't want to go.
Replacement, yeah.
Well, they were just sitting there in a little gaggle. And I'm like, what are you guys okay? Anybody want something to drink? You know, juice box, anything. No, we're okay. And a couple of minutes later, Caden comes in the room and in the living room. He says, Daddy, I don't want to play with them anymore. And I said, are you okay? Because he looked upset. And I said, are they still here? He said, yeah, they're still up in the little, the little playground thing. And I could tell he was visibly upset. And I said, what is wrong? What happened? Did they hurt you? Did somebody bully you? Whatever, all the things. And he said, no, they're watching bad stuff on Dakota's phone. And that was it. Enough said. I said, all right. So I went outside. I made them all go home. And I said, look, if that's not something you want to look at, just remember that, because you're going to get a phone at some point, and that stuff is on there, and it's not the right thing to do, to go looking for that stuff. I said, that's grown-up stuff. And he said, yeah, no. He said, I don't want to. And so he was upset about it. And it kind of drove it all home, because I'm like,
yeah.
Motherfucker, this is what's going to happen. And you know what, Mike, Dana, Zeus, there's nothing you can do about it. They're gonna. This is like, when they go into those.
Right.
Right. I mean, the only thing you can do is educate them.
Right.
That's why I had the talk when I handed the phone to her about porn, because
right.
I had to.
Yeah.
Right.
And then I have to keep those communication lines open. And those weren't things that I discussed with my parents growing up. I mean,
no
way. But this has to be a fluid, relaxed, accessible conversation that we establish with our kids.
Trust, building the trust.
It's on their fingertips.
Yeah, and also, and this was another big conversation too, as far as like things that you have to, navigate with this stuff. There were a lot of cases were starting to come out where people were getting basically vilified and canceled for things that they posted. Like that still happens now, cancel culture. Oh, this guy tweeted something that was borderline racist 25 years ago, so let's cancel his TV show that he just got. Like that goes on now a lot. And I remember having to sit down with the kids, and this was again back then, and I said, look, no matter what you do, if you say something online, if you post something online, it's forever. You can't walk it back. I said, so never hit send. I said, just don't ever post anything that you're not going to be completely okay with. If it's something you don't think you can get away with, I said, just don't do it. And I don't care, because they weren't on, like, they didn't have Facebook and they didn't have any of this shit. And then not to mention the cyberbullying that goes on and the teen suicides over these goddamn devices. Right. You know what I mean? So I told them you can't take anything seriously that other people say about you. Because, but God knows what kind of shit that they, like, let's say in a high school setting or in a student body of some kind, between Discord and Reddit and these platforms where people are just chatting and posting things. I think that's where the real mean shit happens.
Yeah, and
do you remember? I'm sorry. Do you remember not too long ago there was this girl? There's a boy. He was talking about killing himself, and she was like, "Go ahead." Encouraged him. He like gave up, and then she was like, "No, go back in the car and put the hose in." Or I forget how he killed himself, but she provoked it further, and the kid ends up killing herself. I think, thankfully, even though she was a minor, she ended up getting like tried as.
Yeah, it was just a few years ago.
Yeah, it was a horrible thing. And that's a big thing for me is the whole faceless fucking evil that can be out there. And kids were cruel when we were young in our analog.
But they weren't amplified the way they are now.
Yeah.
Well,
now it's
because
public.
they don't have somebody standing in front of them saying, you know what, F you, I'm gonna punch you in the mouth for what you're saying.
Well,
They don't see the facial expression. They don't have to interact on, again, that.
Yeah, but now, but Zeus, now instead of somebody starting a rumor at the park, it gets publicized, you know, like Mike said, for the whole fucking school, the whole world, and it's permanent, and that person feels completely helpless and scarred by it.
And it's the other thing, one of the other things I put on here wasn't one of the main 5, but just the idea of, you know, childhood development, using this technology, and the reflection, which, you know, when you're growing up, you look into the world and certain things are reflected back, and you start kind of building your own identity, right? Like who you are and figuring that out. And then also comparisons. So if you know, say when we were growing up, when Mike was growing up, all of us were growing up, you know, you're in your class, you know, maybe there's, I don't know, however many couple hundred kids in your school, in your class, maybe like 25 kids or whatever. So depending on what your situation was, you know, man, you know, Johnny's parents have a brand new Corvette. My parents are driving a, you know, 1978 Impala with like, you know, you know, primer paint on it or whatever. Like Jimmy gets the new good toy for Christmas and I get coal or whatever. So you're, you know, little Susie's like super cute. No one says I'm super cute, whatever. So you're bouncing these things off these people that are in your cohort, right? And you're making you make comparisons, and you kind of like find out who you are and things along those lines. Well, when it's among 20, 30 people, you see a wide variety in there. But online, everything is the best. Everything is the most, right? Everything is, I'm presenting myself in this super ideal way. Like your kids aren't experiencing each other online, warts and all. They're seeing this like fantasy. And I'm not talking about just with other kids, but with other people. Like they're seeing, you know, the whole Instagram culture, like when they were talking about, and they'll figure out a way, but when Facebook or Meta or whatever, you know, they found out they were doing this Instagram for kids, that's horrifying to me. I mean, and then they had to kind of like backtrack on that, right? It's like, now you're taking these kids who are trying to figure out who they are, and everything that they're seeing, everything that is being reflected back to them, all the comparisons they're making are like these like hyper real, hyper perfect comparisons.
Yeah.
Anyway, just from a child development standpoint, that can't be good. That just can't be good.
You
right?
kind of nailed something right there, Mike. And it's that everything is like, to quote, what was it? Christopher Guest, the band, I can't think of the name.
Spinal Tap.
What? Spinal Tap. Everything is at 11.
Yeah, everything's at 11.
There's no, we don't have, like, again, when we were kids, to what you were saying, it's like the big thing for us, I think, that would compare to like cyberbullying now is like that kid that wanted to fight you after school, right? Like that was the whole day was like revolved around how am I going to get home without having to fight this kid, or even worse, I'm going to find that kid and beat the shit out of him. For me, I know, although I'm a big guy, I was like, avoid it. You know what I mean? Find a way to get home without having to do this.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's like, it's 2:11, you know? It's worse. I'd almost rather get my ass beat than something go across the entire school saying that, whatever, I was a pussy and I didn't, you know, do the fight. back then there's so much more hearsay. You can kind of maneuver.
It was a smaller fishbowl. It was a smaller pond. So when you're a little dude or a little gal, right? And you're just getting your feet under you, you play in the kids pool, right? You play in your grade school class. It's a small cohort. And what I'm saying is you get to know these other kids. It's like it's safe. But now you're taking these same kids that are like 8, 9 years old, and their cohort is the entire, internet, right? So they're not able. It's like taking a little baby and like throwing them out in the middle of like I-95 or something. It's not. I think it retards their development.
Hey.
I think it has consequences that we don't even understand fully yet. I mean, you have to crawl before you can walk.
Emotional impact for sure.
Yes.
They don't know what they don't know, right? So they don't know about the little fishbowl.
Yeah.
So this is all they know, that everything is very big and wide and
global.
Yeah. And so, that's the whole push now, like to be a global citizen.
Yeah.
And that's something that, our kids are going to, they'll get there. But it's a whole different way of being in it, like socially.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, like, you got to question too, like, are they going to make meaningful connections? What's dating going to look like? Are they going to be able to, I don't know. I just don't see them like as knowing each other or themselves as deeply as, our generation had the opportunity to do so.
No, they read about how they should be reacting.
They read about it, or they watch a movie about it, or
they have
it's not
like this girl,
it's nuts.
This girl, I loved her as an actor. The girl from Juno, the one that just had the sex change and is posting it on the internet.
Ellen Page.
Ellen Page. Right. Elliot.
It's like it just blows my mind. It's like she seems so socially conscious, and now she's showing topless pictures of herself as a boy, and any kids that's confused, that's what they're seeing. She was in Umbrella Academy, which was a great series, and I think a lot of kids probably picked up on it. It was cool. It was about like your outcast, and now, so they look at her and they go, "Wow, she's an outcast," and I feel weird about things in my life, so maybe I should do what she's doing.
It's called like social contagion. I mean, there are many things that, a kid in a school commits suicide, and then like a week later, 2 more kids commit suicide, or
but they did it when we were in middle school. I had a kid when I was in middle school, so like about 7th grade, and this kid, I still remember his name, Ben Scrett. He hung himself, right? But nobody else did it. We all felt sad. We were analog. We were like, this is how you feel in these situations. And now you got this.
And you probably knew him pretty well, because
I didn't know him at all. I knew him, but
I'm saying it was a small fishbowl, but you weren't hearing about this from like this huge millions of people fishbowl, right?
Yeah.
Which our kids are in now, if they're connected.
We're in to quote Dana from several episodes back. I mean, yes, maybe, and I'm not skeptical. I'm hopeful that you're right, Dana, that this is like the boil is going to get lanced, and we're going to have such ease.
I hope I live to see it. This could be our lifetime, all labor pains.
I love you, but I'm skeptical, like there needs to be, again, quoting from back another episode, something I said is like, we're going to have that army of people that walk towards the people with the guns and just don't stop until they stop the people with the guns. We're going to need some incredibly drastically awful or beautiful situation that inspires us to be better than what the world is looking right now. And we're part of it. We're feeding this fire. I mean, we're doing a podcast on the internet. You know what I mean? We're literally in the thing that we're talking about is so
I
bad.
thought this was all going out over the telegraph
This is
wire.
instead of us going camping or something.
Right. And
Right.
Yeah, what would I be
What
doing
are we
right now?
replacing, Mike? What are we
We're supposed to
replacing?
do that.
I'm replacing sleep. That's what I'm replacing.
Yeah, at this point, right?
Dana put
Wait,
a post up on the Facebook this
The
week,
Facebook.
and I busted her chops about it because it was like everything you do in life is sitting in front of a computer, and I get it, but then I was like, you realize I'm looking at this on the internet, right?
Right.
And
Oh,
it, like,
Larry.
it kind of
It's very,
defines your haughtiness.
very meta.
Yes, we are.
It's
Part of the matrix.
It's friend and foe. And I think that we don't need to worry too much about our kids not knowing what we know, how it was, because they're never going to know. It's like,
Yeah, do you know what your parents went through?
no,
I mean,
they
a
would
little
always
bit,
remind me of,
here and there.
I walked to school 1,000 miles. Like,
Right.
There's
In
a
the snow, and I didn't have
There's a-
legs.
holes in my sneakers and I held them together with rubber bands. Well, good for you, you know?
there's a story that
We
my
couldn't
dad told
afford
me.
legs. We had to stumble all the way on our bottoms.
There's a story my dad told me years ago, which just blew my mind. And he grew up in West Philly in a row home with 5 brothers and sisters, and went to Catholic school. And he would go with his brother, who was about 2 years older than him. They would go out, and this is downtown West Philly, right? This is not like there's no big fields and forests and stuff like that. Anyway, they would they had guns, not BB guns, 22 rifles, and they would go to school with their backpack, walking to school with rifle over their shoulder, like just walking down Pine Street, to the school, put the rifles in their locker, go to school, and then they go out to like this semi dilapidated place and like target shoot in the city with 22 long guns. I mean, I'm saying, can you imagine today, like a 10-year-old kid walking down the street in the city with like a long gun, 2 of them over their shoulders? And
It better have.
I can't even imagine. What?
They better have one of those orange tips on it so they don't get.
No, I'm just saying we can't even imagine what our parents, what they grew up in. Like, I mean, so on one hand, that's kind of comforting, because it's comforting to know that every generation has their little cross to bear, right? I mean, this is just ours. It's not that it's worse. It's coming at us faster. It is.
And
Can't deny that. But
may I ask Mike a question? Mike, like I would think that during your era, like if a kid was walking down the street with a gun, it was probably not even like looked at as something that was strange, because it was like,
well, my dad's a little older than
everybody was.
Mike, but
Yeah, well, for me, yeah, absolutely. I kind of lived in a sort of a, suburban / rural area, and it would be nothing to see a kid carrying a 22 rifle. I mean, heck, that's kind of normal,
That's what they got for their 8th birthday.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. You get a real 22 now.
Shoot your eye out, kid.
Yeah, son. Listen, my father was a deer hunter. I grew up with rifles. Like,
Good movie.
my father would taught me how to shoot a gun. Like, I enjoyed it as a kid.
yeah.
It's just different now. Like, that whole thing is a whole other podcast. But
Well, there's probably parts of this country where there's still a 10-year-old walking with like a 22 in rural parts of this country, but it's definitely not going to be West Philly.
No. Yeah, it's not West Philly.
Arlington, Virginia.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. They're even just in one generation. We're lamenting the disparity between ourselves, and our children. But maybe that's just the way it always is. I don't know. I mean,
yeah.
If I had I had to pick one problem with the internet and children right now, like one specific application that's making the world dumber and more self-absorbed by the second,
Podcast.
it's got to be TikTok.
Oh my
Got
gosh, TikTok is so much fun.
No, nope.
You're part of the problem.
The scrolling, I think, and the TikTok, like 2 seconds, 1 minute, 6-second
Yeah,
clip.
I'm not
This is
talking about.
shortening the attention span of
I'm not
people.
talking about TikTok for you, a 48-year-old, fully functioning,
She's
fully
not
developed
48.
adult. I'm not talking about adults.
You're talking about for kids.
Talking about for kids, Dan.
Well, again, shame on the parent that's letting their kids look at the TikToks. We gotta be smarter.
All the kid needs is this. You can't watch them.
An account. They have to have an account.
And
my daughter doesn't know what like the TikToks are that I say, hey, did you see that TikTok? She's like, Mom, I'm not on it. Like, no, you have to show me. So then I'll show her that, like something funny that I saw or whatever.
Yeah, but isn't it free?
Yeah.
But you have to have an account. So is Facebook. You have to make an account.
Yeah.
So if the child doesn't have an account, they don't have access to it.
How would you know if the child has an account or not, is my point.
They have like different things that you can connect your account to their account. You can follow your kid's activity online.
I'm talking about the kid that just does it on their own, babe.
Yeah, but you would know because they have to use their email. You would know, like, there's certain, like, I would know if Claudia had a certain account. Like, it would pop up to me. I mean, I'm connected to it. Like, some people don't care. They let their kids have accounts. You're right. Like that, there's kids on there because the parents allow it. I think that we need to have a little bit more responsibility in our parenting. Just on the whole topic alone.
Yeah, but here's the problem, Dana.
Once you give them this, they can do whatever they want.
Here's the problem. They can go to a website that'll teach them how to hide it from you.
Right.
I'm just saying. I mean, I love your optimism.
There is optimism. You got to stay one step ahead of them.
I think we need to be more. I think less optimism, more pragmatism. I don't
know. Maybe I got it easy. I don't know.
Perhaps. And what it's worth, my kids are pretty good. My oldest is a pretty good kid. He plays the viola on a level that like the teachers are amazed by him. He speaks 2 languages. He's got all this stuff going for him. And sometimes you just, you know what? You got to prepare for the inevitable and hope it never happens. You know what I mean? Hope that he doesn't find porn. Hope that he's not interested. Hope that he finds it and goes,
But also, I think, from what Dana has said with her daughter over like many podcasts, my takeaway is Dana has really established a level of trust with her daughter that is kind of the bedrock of a lot of this other stuff that she's able to do, and trust that her daughter is telling her the truth. Her daughter can trust that she's telling her the truth. Would that be accurate? It seems like you guys have a lot of trust with each other.
In my household, and honesty, if you're not doing that, then what's the point?
And it takes work to build that. That's not by accident. It takes work to build.
It takes a lot of honesty on my part. There were times that I had to come very honest to my child about my life and what was really going on with me. Just so that she could learn by example. My mother's very open and honest, like in her, in an appropriate way, not things that she shouldn't know.
Yeah.
But just giving her the honesty that I want in return.
Yeah.
And I do that, and I apologize to my daughter too when I'm wrong. My mother would never do that.
Yeah. That almost never happens.
If I accept my mother's apology, she'd hit me again.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to freak you out, but my parents thought that I was a good kid. And I wasn't a bad kid. but I was, smoking weed behind the high school, trying to, hook up. So it's like, I mean, they're smarter than us, and now they're even smarter. They have resources that are at their fingertips that can tell them how to fool us. So again, I'm not trying to freak you out or get you all worried. It sounds like a lovely young girl.
She's going to do things that, she's going to try to keep from me. It's not nothing's perfect. And, that's the nature of being a teenager, like, pushing the envelope, taking risk-taking behavior. Let's just hope it doesn't kill you.
And again, I don't know that I don't want that.
They have to do it. It's a part of their life.
You have to. Risk-taking is crucial.
It's a part of development. They're gonna do it. It's part of like what makes us human.
Yeah.
They're all gonna do it.
I want my oldest to do something and I go, what the fuck were you thinking? Like, mooning the neighbor. Like, that was the thing when I was a kid. You moon somebody. Like, you went out in the woods, somebody was in the garden, you moon them, run off, right? And then you get caught and you're in trouble.
No, you have to moon somebody while you're driving down the road. That's really the key.
That's dangerous, Michael. You are a bad influence. But I remember when I was a kid, that's exactly what I did. Me and this guy, funniest thing is he ended up being likes other men, which is fine. He's a good friend. I still talk to him, but didn't tell anybody then. It was a little taboo. But we went out one time. We were walking out in the woods, and they had these gardens, like public gardens out in the woods. And we saw this lady, and we were like, "Hey, lady!" And she looked at us, and we dropped our drawers and mooned her and ran off. This idiot, he went and did it without the brains of the operation and got caught. But the thing is my parents, like, they yelled at me, "What the fuck were you thinking?" And then, like, I'm in my room feeling doomed as though the whole world's going to come to the end. And I hear my dad laughing uproariously about it.
Well, the difference is today there would be a video on YouTube of you and your friend mooning this woman because she'd have a cell phone. It would never go away. It would never go away. She'd like take a video of it. And to this day, it would be on YouTube. We could watch it right now.
Jack and I can send it to you later.
Okay.
We got arrested together, remember?
Yes, we did.
Man.
Again,
nice.
I keep calling back on the word analog, but our problems were just, it's different. Everything's high speed. Everything's,
Point of order. I got to hear the story real quick. So you guys got arrested together?
No. We just got caught and got in trouble.
No, not you.
He's not listening, Mike. He doesn't.
Yeah, Jack and Dana.
You missed the whole thing.
Oh,
you guys got arrested together?
Aw.
Yes,
okay.
We did.
So listen, we're gonna hear the story. We're gonna hear the story, and then we're gonna wrap up. And then we're gonna wrap up this episode.
Siren go.
Hey, just tell us the story real quick, and then we're gonna wrap up this episode. Let's end it on this nice story.
Go ahead, Dana. Tell it. You're a better, storyteller.
I mean, it's just a quick one anyway. So when we were growing in Hoboken, it was going from like an industrial era into like what it is now. So we were in like the 70s and the 80s. It was very transitional. The early 90s, like just construction everywhere and destruction. And the waterfront was like a broken down pier. And we used to play ball in there, and it was like broken glass, hypodermic needles, you name it, it was around. So one night, it was just bad.
Sounds like
and one night, we decided we were going to take baseball bats, and it was like a dilapidated pier from like, I don't know, the turn of the century even, right, Jack?
Yeah, well, this was like a building with all these windows. Yeah,
the big buildings with the arcade windows that were thick.
Yeah, and so you had to get into it. You weren't allowed to get into it, and we decided to go up there with sticks and bats and sneak in through one of the.
Climbed up to the like.
We climbed up on the scaffold.
Jesus.
Yeah, we climbed up and we found an open window and we went into this like really scary,
It was
dark,
abandoned.
abandoned place.
We decided to take a baseball bat to these windows, like not just us, but like a couple other friends too.
Yeah.
It was nighttime, and all of a sudden, like this big bright light shining on us. And I was like, "What is that?" You know, like an ambulance or something.
So they called you out.
Yeah, it was the
Oh, yeah.
cops.
You didn't take off. You didn't,
They put us all in this, like, I thought it was an ambulance or some kind of van.
They put you in a
us-
paddy wagon.
It was a paddy wagon.
They put us in a paddy wagon. Now Jack and his friends are all wearing like metal t-shirts.
Yeah.
It was just
damn it.
myself and another female with like a handful of boys that were wearing metal shirts.
Yeah.
So we all go into, you know, the old school police station. They have like the cells at the bars, and they put us all in one, and we waited there, we're sweating it out.
No one say anything to anybody.
Oh, we were
Yeah.
fucked.
Eventually, we were just like, oh man, like our parents have to come get us or whatever. And then we kind of lucked out because like there was people there that they didn't want to deal with their parents. So they were like, you know what, don't do that anymore. Basically, like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
don't do that again. And we, you know, they let us leave, but I mean,
Yeah.
it happened.
We live in
That's
now.
awesome.
We live in the world of VICAP, where they can check everybody's fingerprints and figure out if your fingerprints match some killing down the street or something. So back then they
Yeah,
just go
there's body cams now. No kids are getting away with anything like that
Mhm.
anymore.
crazy.
Like we, you know, you were able to, you know, learn a lesson, you know, back in that day.
Bingo.
But now
Yeah.
the police won't. You can't.
Oh,
It
yeah.
won't happen that way.
Well, there were definitely nights after that where the cops would like confiscate your beers at the park.
Oh yeah, they
And
probably
tell
go
you-
drink it themselves.
Yeah, tell you to go the fuck home.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's funny though that the time Dana's talking about when we got arrested, she said a bunch of us were wearing metal shirts, and I remember me and at least one other guy had the same T-shirt,
Yeah.
and it was Metallica Damage Incorporated.
Nice.
Yeah,
And we
Nice
were
one.
causing damage.
Yeah.
Damage Incorporated as you're being
And
accused
you're breaking windows.
of
Yeah,
vandalism.
you're not going to
yeah.
argue out of that one.
That was good shit.
Wow.
All right, well, what do you think, boys? We've been on long enough?
I
Absolutely.
think so.
Yeah,
was a
boys.
good one.
Boys and girl.
Boys and girls.
Really good episode, Mike. The
Yeah, good
content,
stuff, Mike.
I'm sorry. Okay, well, two things. First of all, congratulations, Dana, on the job.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank
What are
you.
you gonna be? What are you gonna be working as?
A pediatric psych nurse.
Ah, guess you didn't say that this episode.
Nice.
Yes, me too.
I know. No, I just did. Well, you don't watch enough, but
Well, congrats to Dana.
Yeah.
I'm very
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
very happy for you.
I'm excited.
Yeah, this was, I'm sorry I made such a fiasco this week of being on. To be quite honest, I
Wow.
got paid very well to work on Tuesday night, so I couldn't.
It was
sweat.
fantastic. Don't worry about it. It's
had to
good
do
doing
it.
it.
We got it done, man.
Yeah.
One of the nice things about the job is when they need you, they'll just throw money at you. Dana knows.
Yeah.
But
Incentive pay.
for what it's worth for you guys, I do want to let you know, I was telling Mike earlier, I was actually going to turn it down, but like my next above director, whatever that is, was like, hey, you got to get in. And I was like, all right. But I was actually going to turn it down because this show, again, we said in the New Year's Eve one, but this show has been such a catharsis kind of thing for me. I need this now. It's, you don't want to talk about addictions, like
Mhm.
when I have to miss one.
It's
And
the
I was
internet,
going
man.
to let you guys do it without me, but
No, this worked out for everybody except Tom.
yeah, well,
He
I
lost
think-
his internet.
He
yeah,
lost
his internet shot itself.
All right, boys. Well, I
Good.
think it's time we wrap things up.
All right.
Happy 2022, everybody.
Happy
You too,
January
Mike.
Thank
6th.
you. Happy New Year.
Yeah, happy
January.
Happy January 6th, everybody.
Yeah. For
Why
January
does that stand out in my memory? What was it? What was it?
Take care.
All right, guys.
Mike.
Take care.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Good